Yo, happy full moon, happy spring moon, flower moon. Nada atsure nada. Uh, nada kali. Full moon, spring moon, flower moon. Lots of new, lots of things. The weather will finally relieve us a wee bit, perhaps. But full moon in Libra, which Libra is beautiful and balanced and obsessed with beauty and liberation in the world. Um, I would say careful not to let that translate into is the grass greener on the other side? Or is this more beautiful on the other side? It can turn very much into this, but I want to experience everything. And that's maybe the torture of feeling constricted or negated in what it is we thrive for or toward. I saw something the other day that said the grass is greener wherever you water it. And so perhaps that is something that Libra needs to hear to understand where their water goes, especially with all of this Pisces energy, which there'll be some things I'm sure that I run through because they are also already gone through in the Mercury retrograde reading that I put up. So party on, supplementary knowledge. Let's see, full moon in Libra also opposes Aries, with lots of Pisces opposed and empty Virgo, which is very much what I was also just saying. But I think Libra and these aesthetics or feelings or what have you, maybe being subject to an over logical point of view in the way that all of this Aries energy is viewing the world, with a pretty thick lens as it is. And those two things tend to battle, kind of like right brain, left brain. Can battle, do not have to. What's up? Hi, hello. How are you? Um, Sweet. Let's see. Lots of Pisces opposed to empty Virgo. Virgo, I think, also very much driven by liberation and freedom and breaking boundaries, if not rules, which may go against Libra's sensibilities as far as justice goes. Um, but just because it's empty and there's no planets there, it does not mean that it does not have an impact or does not say something. There are great measures to be heard in the silence as well. Mercury is out of retrograde. Venus is on its way to direct eventually as well. Saturn, Neptune series all in Pisces, but Mercury will be moving to Aries eventually. What did I say? Something about what Libra does with its water, and all of that is also in water. All of that is also in Pisces, and so it's like, it feels like sensory overwhelm. It feels like overstimulation, but that also exists very much in our heads, not just the radiations that we're around, and the ways in which that we think or hold on to baggage, the ways in which we hold on to what ifs or possibilities, the things that keep us awake at night. That overwhelm is disorganized in thought or plan or action in some way, shape, or form, which perhaps is placating Mars in Cancer, but will ultimately be a disservice to Mercury as it moves into Aries in the ways that it will continue to move from that momentum, from that current. Are we biting off more than we can chew? And if not, are we avoiding things that will feel like a mouthful as time moves and as the planets do as well? Um, I think the relationship between Pluto and Mars and their oppositions or odds suggests more of a different mode of productivity, rather than a negation altogether. There seems to be a lot of sensitivity in like no, I guess, or in like not yet, or not quite, or almost. And those aren't languages of failure, those are languages of keep learning. Um, keep plotting, keep planning, keep learning, all good things. Relationship between Jupiter and where it's stationed against Pisces placements and all of these moon placements, I think is a very directive of that. If we are to let go of all of the tension that is existing in Pisces, in memory of experience or what have you, in anger and aggression and annoyance, even, and can see those things differently, then the simplest changing of perspective can change the way the light bends or radiates. The simplest change in perspective can alleviate and find freedom from psychological weights or burdens, or alleviate and find freedom from the idealized self or the misconception of self, on the ways in which we create boundaries around the self, the computational boundaries of the self, and the ways in which perhaps compassion expands those things, which isn't even just a tarot thought. Microbiologist Michael Levin could assist in some of those thoughts. Has a really cool lecture if you just YouTube computational boundaries of the self. I guess it's not a lecture, it's more like an interview, but whatever. Um, da, 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 da. Let's see, how do I say this? Because it very much creates this triangular energy. And if we're moving from all of this Pisces energy, we're moving from bad memories, we're moving from neglect, we're moving from fears of rejection or rejection in general. And that's carrying over into our emotions, into our frequencies, into the ways that we move with them, into what Jupiter is ultimately going to do with them. If we can change small perspectives in it, honestly, I think that's why Saturn's still there, is because it's just asking for a little pivot. Then the moon and all of its emotions and all of those waves and all of those frequencies and all of that impact can uh, maybe cause more gentle precipitation than a full-fledged storm, and can allow for more movement, more fluid movement, not just fast movement, because we'll be having freed ourselves of misconceptions, of illusions, even. Much like you peel back layers of the kosha, much like you, even in small mundanity, would unplug for a little while, go, screenless for a day, or find ways to build non-sensory overwhelm or external input into your day so that you can find out what it is that you're actually feeling. Are we just chronically anxious, or are we spending too much time looking to the outside world for answers? Funny. I find it so funny. My condolences for anybody that does. um I think it speaks very much to a misfire or ignite, in that sequence or with that current. Perhaps we're looking at too much gas or too little. Too much gas floods the engine when we think that there's not enough. And it's like big fireballs when people are pouring shit onto the barbecue. Too much burden, shame, guilt in our memory prevents or provokes the future, ultimately. And so we're going to pull some cards and see what it is that can be clarified in that, with that energy. As far as anybody in on this, watching this, chatting on this, if you would like to be here because you are interested, party on. If you are not, then kindly fuck right off. In the kindest way. But also, what an interesting display of the blindness of all of this emotional memory in Pisces and heated tension in Aries. I love the ways that the world plays these things out like musicals for us to see. If we are not blind to belief. Or blind to the self. Perhaps there is no veil. Perhaps the only veil are the illusions that we project. All right. Much like we are hanging out, if you so choose to, and with an erect spine open to the opportunity, eh? We'll take 3 deep breaths and allow that breath to course through you. I will tap into the moon. You don't have to tap into anything but you. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. I feel very submerged and also not so much weightless, but like floaty. And you are very aware of your body in that situation. Which says to me, kinesthetic sense, like how aware are we of ourselves in space? How aware are we of, our own resonance and our own patterns? Even the stars has 7 different genders of relationships in the ways that they oscillate. How is it that we oscillate around relationships in our life? And too often do we not have enough genders of relationships, but we force somebody to be, or something to be our sun, and rotate around that rather than engage or have a frequency of our own. There was also something that felt quite irritating, and it's, as much as I would love to blame it on this chat, it's not that. It's more like pressing buttons, like pressing other people's buttons, or having my buttons pressed, or having your buttons pressed. And these sort of like sensitivity triggers. I think that by etymology and root, that is a sense of realities clashing, or realities being infringed upon. And now that I'm thinking about it, this like viscous floating sensation that I was still very aware of my body in, I've had a dream similar to a dream kind of provoking that. And so I think it's maybe inflammation and absorption and the ways in which we absorb all the shit around us, absorb frequencies around us, absorb whatever it is. Like what? God, I wonder what statistically radiation, or not radiation, inflammation levels have been in the last few years. Um, and I do know barometric pressures have been much more inconsistent with the weather changes, and that has led to some pain for people, uh, because it's been very fluctuating and very much more concurrent than in the past, and so acclimating is very difficult. But those that's just one mundane example of the way inflammation can impact day-to-day life. And inflammation, occurs in many ways, shapes, and form, and is often not uh, well maintenance because it is very mysterious to medical health industry in a lot of ways, shapes, and forms still. Um, Stress is inflaming, hormone imbalances create that. Uh, but also beyond the literal quality of that, the ways in which we absorb information, emotions, even stress chemicals and sweat are contagious. We may not be conscious of our absorption rates of that, but in fact, if we are in environments that are making us sick, we must adjust, much like we would for our plant life. Um, and so, take that, do what you must with it. We've got Eight of clubs, five of clubs, eight of diamonds, four of spades. Ooh, okay, this is dope. Um, the four of spades is your mental space, is a mental safe space. In meta, this is often, or this is the like main room, the like housing room for it, where you can make your beautiful home screen, or whatever, or on a computer, yes, your home screen. On your phone, your home screen. How organized is that? Do we know where everything is? Do we feel guided and protected in those spaces? Um, do we make readily available the resources that we can have available to us, or are we searching through our phone to find our email and whatever we downloaded? Sometimes it can get disorganized. I get it. It's a lot of information in a very short amount of time. And again, the ways that we absorb and maybe don't wring out what we don't need, or don't allocate those juices to whatever needs hydration, irrigate. um, Eight of clubs is fire, is creative, is also, I think, the ways in which we get ahead of ourselves or hold us back. This eight of diamonds is very much greed or envy, just in that green. But we also have diamonds, we have wealth, we have patterns, we have continuation, continuity, growth. But because of these two things, and both on either side, um, it's very cool and very interesting. We've got five in the middle. Five is a creative space. The eights are the patterns that exist outside of it. Um, if five is where the thoughts occur, then eight is the worries, and the eight of this eight of fire is the worries, and this eight of diamonds is the outcomes. They influence each other constantly. This is also a common belief in hologram theory, or in ancient ancestral beliefs of coming from the stars, which is very much just hologram theory, by a different name. And God, even what they say, where the focus goes, grows. Consistently, we find ourselves relearning that the mind is a very powerful tool, and it also very much does influence the outcomes. And so, let's get these eight of clubs thoughts in order, so that we can see the outcome to equal measure in a positive way, because they are equal patterns repeating in opposite directions, kind of like reflecting a laser. Very powerful opportunity. But this Five of Clubs is your calm creative space. This influences the Four of Spades. Um, and what, again, the thought influences in the reality. Do you feel safe at home? Do you feel comfortable in bed? Do you feel like you can poop at your best friend's house? The ways in which the body feels comfortable will show it to you in these ways. Um, and that is the way that you will see your psyche, your personality influence your surroundings, even outside of the spiritual aspect of it. Um, just the ways in which you walk and talk and influences the characterization of the things that surround you. But yes, also in a very heartfelt and spiritual sense, the ways in which you cultivate safety and security, the ways in which you cultivate spaces to work or to be vulnerable, um, will show. And that shows in your surroundings, but it also shows in your conversations and creations. And that's very much what these eights are lending themselves to. Um, I think that also means to be more, especially with all these blues, these very like open and expansive and uh, not easily blendable, but these blues and purples and greens, they meld into each other a lot. They're utilized in patterning a lot. The relationship between these colors is cooling and expansive, um, rather than the intensity of like a vibrant closing in, right? Um, that says a lot to be about being open-minded, um, in order to be able to have these conversations, or even with other people, but even just with yourself, the conversations of possibility, of belief, of entertaining options and opportunity, um, of entertaining versions of you that have not been hurt or damaged. There's some bit that's like after 7 years, your body regenerates so many cells that, I think 7 years is the entirety of it, but your body regenerates cells, and so it can be a very healing thought to consider that new cells perhaps have an opportunity for a different memories application, and production in your memory lines, um, that can ultimately help weave again around this Four of Spades in a comfortable, a safe, a vulnerable, and empowering space. A space for learning, a space for enlightenment, a space for growth. Um, which is interesting too, because I've had dreams where we're like escaping the Gestapo or something, and uh, often find refuge in a library. And that is not just a silly dream. I think libraries, and the idea of rooms in which you are safe, protected, government institution or whatever, but knowledge as being something that is protected can be very ensuring of safety in and of its own. Perhaps we will see more and more of that in the ways that books come out, or the ways in which knowledge is preserved or taught or reified in the modern world, so that it becomes a more ingrained tool of revolution and reciprocity, which can exist in these oscillating conversations when we give it the room to breathe. When we give ourselves the room to breathe, even again, the sense of overwhelm and disorganized thought and plan and action, um, is that even again in mundane life, is that because we're always on our phone and we spend more time than more often than not feeding our brains with lights and sounds and sirens and overstimulation and bad news and terrible news and really great news, and are creating this like constant ebb and flow of high and low. Um, do we put that down, put it away, and allow ourselves time to breathe, calm down, and actually be present in the world, be present with our breath, disseminate and discern and digest all of that information? Do we? Oftentimes not. Oftentimes I feel like it's hard to find a moment to yourself in the world. In fact, I think that's a big part of anti-Muslim sentiments, um, because praying 5 times a day infringes on the capital gain. Um, and not even that it has to be prayer in any given form, but shit, a smoke break. And some places won't even give you a break unless you ask for a cigarette, which is crazy, which is a crazy, crazy world. But those are maybe not the healthiest, but ways in which we can seek to find a moment for ourselves, unplugged from all of the overstimulation. Or in a yogic sense, Ishvara Pranidhara, which is a reining in of the senses so that we can withdraw from the external world and be fully present in the internal world. Um, and it's a devotion to the moment, really. One in which you're not asking for anything, you're not in greed or envy. You are at peace, you are at ease. And that's not to say ease is easy. Uh, Quite the opposite, oftentimes. I liken it to something like natural birth. Um, I've heard incredible stories, and, for all of the pain and expansion that occurs, I think some people who are really present with that moment would say that it was also very, rewarding and kind of a high and kind of just euphoric of a moment. And those are the ways in which your mind can influence the outcomes of things. There's actually really good research on meditation and pain threshold, um, and the ways in which meditation can sort of plateau points of impact so that your brain only registers so much of it due to anticipation, really. Um, and so, are we anticipating constantly, looking for new information on our phones or what have you, or looking for something else to be worried about, or some other terrible thing? Sometimes I feel like we know it's fucked. Um, what we need to put our energy to is the ways in which we make it better. Because, like molecules, if we're stressed and we're creating in that stress, we are in fact drawing it. We are in fact ingraining it, embedding it into the creation as well. That's why you cook with love and not in a bad mood. That's why you ultimately bless any circumstance when you bring yourself in a balanced presence to it. And I've said the same with suspension, even, or piercing in general, or tattooing. You can feel the vibe of that person, and if they're like agitated and upset and aggro, that does change the impact of the scenario, because it is a give and take. You are receiving energy as well as putting it out, and that is true whether we like it or not. Our molecules, our atoms, are always just vibrating different messages to other atoms, essentially. Essentially. So be very conscious of it. Not to overwhelm you in that knowledge. Be very conscious of it. I feel like knowing that makes the world feel more magical than more weighty. And that is the kind of relief and flight that I seek. And so let's get clear about the relief and flight that you seek, that we seek, that we all seek. Yeah? Yeah. Which is also something I think Libra is very interested in. So be open to those conversations and consider thoughts. I know people can be very annoyed very annoyed when you find somebody who upholds a piece of information that basically or essentially combats, provokes, or denies or debunks yours. And so it can feel blasphemous, it can feel absurd. But life is kind of absurd right now. And so we entertain the absurdity, not to entertain it, but to show itself its own way out. Um, like shepherding dogs or kittens, I suppose. Um, let's see, what else, what else, what else, what else? Oh, I really want to lean into this idea of refuge within the self as well. This Four of Spades can be the refuge of your mind or not. Like, I'm sure, growing up, trying to escape screaming in a household or trying to hide from abusive parents or what have you. Um, the ways in which we would shut ourselves in a room or what have you. I say what have you because these are all circumstantial situations that can differ. Um, but the ways in which we would shut ourselves in our room, slam the door, or whatever it is that you would see in movies, um, to escape the turmoil, um, is that room, like that room would be your refuge, whatever it is, the soft carpets, the lights, the loud music to drown it out. Um, this Four of Spades is that. In what ways are we that refuge for ourselves in our own minds? And unfortunately, I think a lot of people don't enjoy being in their own mind or in their own company. And so that needs to be addressed. Or you're always going to be in a cage with the elephant in the room, a cage with a tiger in the room, perhaps. Um, or it can become an eternal and safe place. I feel like I've talked for a long time about technology trying to usurp that. Um, and so it's about time that this becomes very prevalent and something that we invest our energy and our mental energy into to sort of clean out the closets and dirty corners of our mental space so that we can have a sunny Bay Area window and illumination and clean open floors in there. Um, and just how rewarding that can be, um, especially in times of potentially collapsing economy. To use reward in that context is funny to me. But it is, in fact, our hall of mirrors. And when we refract the light, it grows. Gosh, I'm loving these. They're so cut to the chase. But we will leave it there. Party on. Um, Spend some time with yourself. Get real familiar with yourself. I hope that does not all sound too daunting. And I hope that you can move in a creative space rather than in a restrictive one and pivot just enough to see a glimmer of a different dimensional quality in anything that combats you or causes you to struggle. Sometimes it really can just be that simple. Much love. If you are here, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Shere quea. Squista. Tanatakoi.